It's a bit daunting being back after 4 months off. I don't think I've ever had 4 months off broadcasting in, well, in a very long time. And, you worry about whether you can still get on the horse, let alone gallop. And so it's wonderful though. And people are telling me I'm looking well and so I'm happy. Yeah, I'm so pleased to be back. Well, it wasn't a scare because I had no time really to think about it. We just assumed that on the Monday they would do this keyhole surgery. And they did. They had a try at doing it. And it was obvious that I wasn't going to be a candidate for that. So they started packing up all the gear. I'm sedated, but I'm aware that they're not happy with the way it's gone, and they're packing up all the gear. And I came downstairs, my daughter was there, Millie. I said, they can't do it, Millie. She said, what's going to happen? I said, well, they're going to cut me open on Wednesday. And that's the only, those 2 days were all the time I had really to think about open heart surgery. If I'd Googled it, I would have been scared. This is major stuff. They cut you right in with a crosscut saw. What do you call it? A circular saw, I suppose. Not going too deep, I suppose. They got to worry. And then they prise open the old ribs and lift up the lung, and there's the ticker. And they went in with a scalpel and they sliced off. They went into the ventricle, one of the ventricles, sliced off the excess muscle that had built up. Yes. Then they stitched that up. Then they went into the atrium, sliced a bit off that, and it got too slack. Then they fixed up a valve. And 5 hours later, I'm back in a little room, surrounded by what my wife calls a tree of machinery. Tubes coming everywhere, including but of course, I was out for 5 days. And you don't come out of that suddenly. It takes a couple of weeks before you know whether you're Arthur or Martha, really. I mean, when I came out of the anaesthetic, I was aware that Deborah and Millie were around me. And that was lovely. I was holding their hands. And but everything, and I started, oh no, that must have been a few days later. But when I first started to talk to them, which took, I think, some days, because I couldn't talk the pipe, and a tube down my throat. So that was taken out after a few days. But when I first started to talk to them, my voice is like that, like a rasp. And everything I said made them laugh. I thought I'd become a great comedian. But I was talking nonsense. I thought I'd had a heart transplant. I lay there convinced I'd had a heart transplant. Deborah said, you haven't had a bloody heart transplant. You've had a heart operation. I said, oh, thank God for that. Anyway, so it's a huge thing, heart surgery. And I had no idea, so no, I wasn't scared. I might have got a bit scared later. Yes, I had a relapse a couple of days after getting home to Hawke's Bay. During the night, this is where I have that famous dream that I've spoken about with the Queen of England. I've been watching all this Jubilee stuff, and the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth, asked me to go round and stack up all these Lancaster bomber tail guns. Where's that come from? Anyway, Deborah had gone to sleep in a spare room because I'm mad, going everywhere. And I think physically I was pushing pillows round and everything, thinking I was stacking tail guns. And I woke up just exhausted, and I couldn't breathe. I sat there for 2 hours trying to breathe, just sat in my bed. And that's when, a couple of hours later, the old ambulance took me back. I've spent quite a lot of time in hospitals in the last year, a lot of which people don't know about. There's a nice thing about Hawke's Bay Hospital. It's not radar. But it's a slow process, and I got one of the things, I got so much encouraging mail and correspondence and phone calls. And a lot of it was from people who are members of the Zipper Club. I remember the Zipper Club, see. And a lot of it is from people who are in the Zipper Club. And they said, look, you'll get grumpy. I don't think I ever really got too grumpy. I might have got a bit depressed. But within 6 months, they said, 5 months, whatever, you'll be wonderful. One woman said her husband had this operation some years back, and he was near dead, and had the operation. Now he cycles and swims and God knows what. So you come right. The body's amazingly resilient. You come right, and particularly if you've got support. My wife, she's been there thick and thin, through thick and thin, Deborah. and you know, she'll ring me and say, "Have you taken your pills?" You know, I have so many bloody pills. God, I counted them. I think there's 10 in the morning and about 7 at night. I've got to tell you, I have developed a huge respect for love and for human compassion and generosity. I always have had those, but that's been emphasised to me this year. But also, you know, I'm incredibly impressed with our health system. For a country this size, we punch above our bloody weight. I've no doubt about it. And that heart unit at Auckland, it's just superb. The dedication people have there. One of the cardiologists, my cardiologist, a guy called Ivan Gerber, I sometimes wondered if he ever went home. He'd be there at 7:30 in the morning, "How are you, Paul?" And he'd be there at 5:30 at night, "How are you? We've found out this and we're going to do this." And just amazing. And they're dedicated people, and I give them my eternal thanks. I think just before the operation that the boss here had asked for messages of support from the listeners, and that he'd bound them up in a book form, and he just missed me. I went into theatre before he made it up to the hospital, but I saw it later on, about a month later, and he bound it up into book form, and there would be near 1,000 good wishes, and I was staggered by that people even remembered. But the thing was, some of these were multi-paragraphed messages. Thanks for all the pleasure over the years and so forth, and all the very best, and I was really touched by that. There were a lot of cards and mail too, you know, which I replied to one day, one very long day. When I come back, I'll go gently, I think. There's no point going like a bull at a gate. I don't need to. You know, I've paid my dues.